information is power. It's stressful when you're in a gate area and you can sense that, maybe the flight's going to be delayed. You see some storm clouds running in, the gate screen switches to a new departure time, but you don't really know why. And so we have wanted to arm our customers, with more information and with more opportunity to, again, have their travel experience be whatever they want it to be.
Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Marketing Vanguard podcast. I'm Jenny Rooney with Adweek, and I'm thrilled to be here with Maggie Schmerin. Maggie, it's always a pleasure to see you.
Great to see you. Thanks, Jenny.
So listen, we have so much to unpack. You are a superstar in the world of marketing. You have done so much. Frankly, you've made it to so many lists. And I say that with the utmost respect, because getting accolades in this industry is no easy feat. And you have gotten it consistently. In fact, we just recently lauded you with the Marketing Vanguard Awards honoree list. Just a few weeks ago. It's our second list coming out. And so congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. That was a huge honor. I have so much respect for everything that you and the Adweek team do. So thank you.
Yeah, well, listen, I mean, when we do that, and that's what I want to get into here, we are honoring people who are leaders in this industry, who are basically doing the work that they need to do for their given brands, but they're obviously, through the choices they're making, they're propelling the industry forward, and they're having impact that goes beyond the bounds of their job. So before we get into that, talk about the bounds of your job, the sphere of influence that you hold at United Airlines, and tell us a little bit about your backstory and kind of what got you to this place.
Yeah, sounds good. Well, thanks again. Super excited to dig in. So I'm the Chief Advertising Officer at United Airlines. We take a very broad definition of advertising. Really, what does that mean, in terms of marketing, communication, the brand? So how do we show up? We don't have an awareness problem. Everyone knows exactly what United does, but we want to show up in a way that feels different for our category to make sure that people really know every best way to travel with this airline, to be a member of the Mileage Plus program, where we fly, and really the things that are not about getting a plane, up in the air. I think getting people from point A to point B might be the least interesting thing about us these days. So it's my job and my team's job to really make sure that we bring awareness and shed a spotlight on that. My background has always been in this space. I came to know United because they were actually a client of mine. I spent the bulk of my career prior to being in-house at United on the agency side. Most of that was with Edelman, PR, comms background, but really in the social digital space. And United became my client. They were an awesome client. Sometimes you have clients where you think, oh, thank goodness I don't work there, that I get to go home, back to my office at the end of the day. They were not like that. And I kept thinking, well, maybe I'm just, not seeing the bad apples. Well, it turns out there really weren't bad apples. I ended up being embedded there for several months. And they were nice enough to just say, do you want to come work here? And the answer was an enthusiastic yes.
And how many years ago was that?
So I'm coming up on 8 years.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
But you haven't been Chief Advertising Officer for all those years, right? So talk a little bit about your path.
Yeah, that's correct. My very first role at United was looking after consumer PR, being a company spokesperson. So spent, the bulk or
makes sense coming from Edelman. Yeah.
Exactly. Spend the bulk of, every single day on the phone with media, both promoting the brand, protecting the brand, when we had issues and challenges. But then over time, morphed into more of that marketing role, picked up with social media, some of digital, and then inherited advertising at the really opportune time of May 2020, when the goal was, hey, we're not advertising because we're losing about $40 million a day. At this moment in time, people were obviously not traveling. But that really, I think, was a silver lining when I think back to what my team and I have been able to do, because we had some time to think about, we're going to shake this playbook up. We know we're not doing things maybe how we've always done them because of the backdrop of the pandemic, but travel will come back. It will come back in a big way. And let's be ready when that moment happens.
Yeah. Listen, and air travel is such a unique animal. And the relationship you have with consumers, I would argue, is so vastly different than any other brand out there. I mean, and it's everything, right? It literally touches people's lives, people's business. It's something that we take for granted. And yet when it's really good, we remember it. And when it's really not good, we remember that too. So talk a little bit about that, the nuance, frankly, as an airline brand, and I don't even mean just travel, but just an airline brand marketer, like how are you thinking about the unique layers of complexity that come into play with that?
Yeah, you are so right. This was one of the biggest learnings I had, and still to this day, when we work with partners, media platforms, when we work with agencies, you almost see that light bulb moment when someone, really gets the complexity of the opportunity and the challenges that we have, but then also who our audience is and who we're going after. We are a global brand. We became the world's largest airline last spring. But our business model also has, these really interesting geographical complexities to it. We have 7 hub cities, in the US, and not all hubs are created equal. If you think about a traveler who lives in New Jersey, they are going to fly with United Airlines. Newark will be their home airport.
I being one of them, by the way.
Right, exactly. Thank you. I have seen you in Newark Airport in Terminal C there. So yes, I know that well. We want people to feel good. We want them to say to their taxi driver, take me to Terminal C Newark, and say that with a bunch of pride and not just feel that they're handcuffed to the loyalty program and they have no other choice. Then you look at a market like Denver, where, one of our competitors is right there with us. And we see a lot of what we call, wallet splitters, someone that might be flying with us one week for a business trip, and then they're flying on the competitor the next week for a family trip. And our goal there is how do we get more of that share of wallet, really different than what we're doing in Newark. And so even though, like I said, we're this national brand, we are a global brand, it really starts with that geographical lens. And I don't think I appreciated that, prior to working here, and really how much, we need to pay attention to that. And then there are markets where, other airlines, call those markets hubs and homes. And even though United operates there, we really have to think about, is that the best city, even though in some cases these are major US cities, to utilize our dollars and utilize our time and our resources. So it's incredibly interesting. And then you just add on the pandemic, and that has shaken up every travel trend. We've all seen the headlines about what's the best time of week, the best day, the best hour to buy your flight and to search and all of that. I mean, really, the pandemic has truly changed everything. We all know, we've been in airports, we've seen how busy the aircraft are full. People are traveling, and you take Thanksgiving, is probably the best example of that. We all know, the Wednesday before Thanksgiving was always celebrated as the busiest travel day of the year. But now with work from home, work from anywhere, people are able to extend, the time that they go somewhere. So some of our hubs, the busiest travel day of the Thanksgiving period was the Friday, Saturday, Sunday prior to Thanksgiving, because people are able to be gone longer. So it's been really interesting to think about, this is a sector that's been around for decades, and some of those trends, we could really put our plans against them pretty easily. And then you throw in the pandemic, and it's a whole new ballgame, a whole new.
I mean, again, just so much complexity, and I'll just put it out there. And obviously, this will probably run perhaps in 1 or 2 weeks' time. But still, I want to flag the fact that we're on the other side of Thanksgiving now. You and I are actually talking on the Tuesday after Thanksgiving. So arguably, we're on the other side of, if you were at H&R Block, we'd be on the other side of tax season, right? And like that's the metaphor for it. How did it go? I mean, what happened this year that you feel was unique, different, surprising?
Yeah, great question. It went really well. It was our busiest Thanksgiving ever. Sunday after Thanksgiving was the busiest day in the nearly 100-year history of our airline, in terms of the number of flights that we operated and the number of passengers that moved through our system. So it truly was our Super Bowl. You think about Thanksgiving, Christmas, and then spring break. Those are the marquee moments for us. And so we all rise to the occasion. we do something really special at United where we encourage our employees that don't tend to normally work in the airport. They have a job on the other side, the M&A side, to get out into the airports to volunteer to help. So my team and I did a bunch of that. So we got to interact with a lot of customers, help them. I was so impressed with the spirit of not only our employees, but also the traveling public. I think people know when they're showing up to the airports during a busy time like that, like they bring their A game just as much as our employees do. So it was really exciting. And we saw some, unique travel trends. Historically, domestic locations are obviously where people go. They're visiting family, they're going back to their hometown for the holidays.
College students, obviously, lots of college students travel.
Yeah. But we're seeing more and more with each passing year, people thinking about international destinations, thinking about places like Europe that historically, it's off season there. That's a place people tended to go in the summer. We are seeing a lot of interest in Christmas market. That's myself where I spent the Thanksgiving holiday.
A good friend of mine went to Budapest with her family for Thanksgiving.
Yeah. Exactly. So that's the really interesting thing. I mean, I think Instagram and TikTok and what social media has done as being, the travel agency and the travel inspiration has for all of us. And then we're trying to be as responsive as possible and making sure our route network matches all these places that people want.
Yeah. We are actually, as we talk here, we're on what's called, I guess, Travel Tuesday. Who knew? Well, how do you think about those moments too? Because, listen, pricing, everybody always talks about pricing is still such a big thing. And, you obviously want to lean into good, being known as a good pricing option, but also you can't just have it all hinge on pricing. So, where do you sort of think about your marketing on a day like Travel Tuesday? What's the messaging and the positioning that you need to do?
Yeah, great question, because this seemed to really become a thing. I think we'll look back on 2024 as the year that really cemented what has become Travel Tuesday. I think it's been, a little bit under the radar the last couple of years, but something that became a big deal. So we're running a really attractive sale to 25 international destinations right now, everywhere from Tahiti to Turks and Caicos, Morocco, which is probably our newest destination that we just started service to a couple of weeks ago. So we want to make sure we're responsive to what's happening in the zeitgeist. I mean, I always like to say social media is a dinner party conversation. You wouldn't show up at a dinner party conversation and totally talk about something that the rest of the table is not interested in. You wouldn't insert yourself, 6 different times in that. But we want to be present and be a part of that conversation, especially as a leader in the category. So absolutely, we want to make sure we're participatory. We have a great sale. We started talking about it yesterday. We had a lot of debate on our team. What's the right day, Cyber Monday or Travel Tuesday? I think the right answer is let's make these deals available for a couple of days. People are busy. So this is a sale that we're actually running all of Cyber Week for our customers to take advantage of.
That's awesome. And I would be remiss if I didn't, you're talking about how you're showing up largely for business travelers and consumers outside of our industry, but Cannes is obviously one of the biggest moments inside our industry. And I know you are doing so much to be the preferred airline of choice for industry executives traveling to Cannes every June for the Cannes Lions International Festival of Creativity. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, this is something that we have a ton of fun with. We started nonstop service to Nice a couple of summers ago from our hub in Newark. And this summer, we will also offer nonstop service from Washington Dulles, which is really exciting. But I got to thinking, I said, okay, these are all movers and shakers that are going on these flights over to Cannes. And there's maybe no greater, channel than word of mouth marketing. And so you're going to have all these marketers show up and everyone talks about their flight over, were they delayed? What happened? When did they book their flight? That just tends to be the opening conversation, in a place like Cannes. So I thought I want people to have something really good to say. And it's almost like a party. I feel that Cannes and the experience, why not have it start at the airport and start kind of before you have your first glass of rosé, at the Carlton. So to speak. So this will be now our 3rd summer in a row doing this, but just making sure we're bringing special added touches We've had a celebration in the gate area the last couple of summers. We've texted customers on those flights to say we have something special planned for you. Make sure you arrive to the airport early. We've had a, jazz quartet inspired by music that you might hear in the south of France. Obviously, rosé, snacks, and just making sure, that we're giving people a really good reason to show up and say with pride that United Airlines, is their airline of choice.
I love that. And I want to say formally again, thank you so much for letting Adweek actually put our special can issue last summer on the seats of, I believe it was a couple of flights that went over those direct flights. So we loved being part of the experience, the United experience there. So thank you.
No, thank you. We love that as well. And yeah, we're excited. These are some of our best performing flights. When we look at them, no surprise there. It's such a marquee event for our industry. So I'm really excited to have Washington Dulles join the Newark party this coming summer.
No, saying no names, respect all names, but you're carving out your placement, United's role in the travel there. So that's very, very cool. We've mentioned this word experience, and and you're talking about what's happening, for the can flights at the gate. It's sort of like a running narrative, right? It's a true running experience throughout, starting, getting ready to board the flight, on the flight, and then on the other side. Experience is something that obviously, I think all airline brands need to be thinking about. I see that you all are actually going to expand one of the lounges, right? It's going to be one of the biggest, best lounges. And, the lounge experience for loyal travelers is a massive connection point, brand engagement point, right? So share your experience on that and your expertise and how you're thinking about using that strategically to make sure that you're wowing your most loyal customers where they, frankly, are going to spend the most time with you outside of the actual physical airplane.
Exactly. You're right. I mean, this is something we are laser focused on at United. I mean, truly all departments coming together to think about what's the best experience that we can offer truly to all of our customers, and how can we build different offerings that meet whatever needs you might have as a business traveler, as someone solo traveling, as, a family. And so really looking, I think, more deeply at different, customer segments than we ever have before. I take a lot of, inspiration from the hotel category. A brand like Marriott, who's one of our great partners, they have 30 some hotel brands within their portfolio. And what you're going to get at a JW Marriott versus Spring Hill Suites versus a Ritz-Carlton. Historically, it wasn't like that. In the airline sector, we had obviously first class, business. But those came with very set specific benefits. And you might say, that's not necessarily a benefit that I need. And so how can we really have, that experience for every type of customer and traveler within the same aircraft? So it's a little bit harder to do than I think our friends in the hotel space, but that's something that we're really focused on. So yes, we have a big emphasis on our lounges, our airport terminals in general, and that experience there. We have done a lot when it comes to communicating with our customers. One thing that I tend to hear the most about is the texts that we send our customers. People seem to really enjoy those. This started a couple of years ago.
I love them.
I love hearing that. We call that program internally, Every Flight Has a Story. And it's really our, conversational way to say, what would you text, your mom or your spouse or your friend if they were waiting for you on the other side at an airport to pick you up? And let's say, there's unfortunately a delay because of bad weather. What would you say to them? And then let's just talk to you in that same conversational tone of voice. Let's tell you what's going on. Information is power. It's stressful when you're in a gate area and you can sense that, maybe the flight's going to be delayed. You see some storm clouds running in. The gate screen switches to a new departure time, but you don't really know why. And so we have wanted to arm our customers, with more information and with more opportunity to, again, have their travel experience be whatever they want it to be. If you want to talk to an individual gate agent, you can do that. If you're someone that, I don't want to stand in the line, I don't want to talk to someone, I'd like to communicate through the app. I'd like to, communicate with United through social media from, the airport. That's okay too. And we're really trying to make sure that we offer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's bringing something very human to the experience, and I literally just was on a flight a couple weeks ago, and it was something about whether it's air traffic control is busier than normal right now. The plane just got in, and we need to clean it. Need to spend a little more time cleaning it. Like even those details and that level of transparency, and frankly, we're living in a time when texting is so common, right? In terms of relaying information. And the fact that you guys are leaning into that is palpable. It's huge. Um, Flip side, obviously social media is a great place for people who want to complain. So, I mean, how do you deal with that? How do you think about that? It's no surprise, like every airline is dealing with that. But, how do you think constantly about how you need to show up in the face of that?
Yeah, I think in no other job I've had, no other category have I had to do more, reading the room, read the room and the tenor of the conversation of what's happening on the internet every single day. I talk to friends at other brands that, they can schedule posts and, the content going to go out on this day. That's not obviously, something that we can do in our category because we really have to be responsive to what's going on. And we've totally changed our approach on social. We are much more playful, witty, willing to take those opportunistic risks, being responsive to trends. But we can only do that if, the operation is running well. If there's a massive snowstorm that's about to hit Denver and we're over here, joking around on social media, those things do not gel together. So we work really closely with what we call the heartbeat of the airline. It's our operations center that, funnels everything happening at the airline. We actually have what we call a seat holder, someone who's based there on an ongoing shift, monitoring social media, in addition to lots of other tools that we use for social. But this person, is seated just a couple seats down from the person that is, quarterbacking the operation of the airline in a 24/7, role. So we can help understand, what's happening in the operation. Are we about to go into, a thunderstorm delay at an airport? What does that mean? And then they can relay to our team, hey, you were maybe going to go joke around and have some fun and do something, again, capitalizing on a trend. Now might not be the right time to do that. What might be the better, more helpful content is to say to our customers, here's what's about to happen. We are going to have, bad weather in this city and you're able to change your flight and be, much more helpful. So it requires an immense amount of coordination. And just when we think, we checked all boxes and we checked in with colleagues, you almost can't check enough to say, I'm literally about to publish on this. Because we just never want to step it. Nothing drives me crazier than unforced errors and breaking into jail as a brand. And so we work really hard to ensure that that happens as, infrequently as possible.
So that is a great segue into my asking you questions about you, about your role, like your personal role, your responsibility, the actions you're taking. And I guess literally until this moment, as you're describing it to me, because, we both know tons of chief marketing officers and equivalent titles. And I truly can't think everybody has to be always on. I get that. Any brand has to be always on. But it's literally like the Super Bowl for you every day. I literally don't know how you cannot be always on because air travel is happening every second of every minute of every hour of every day. And so from your seat, how do you literally sleep? How do you think about building a team around you that so that you can go to sleep on a given night and know you're going to wake up and there won't be a massive disaster, literally bring us into a day in a life of you and how you navigate.
Yeah, so you're right. It is a huge part of that. I remember in my early days working at the airline, being at a family function. I think it was a family reunion, and I was a bit distracted, on my phone with something that was going on. I remember my mom, typical, mom, daughter kind of swatting at my hand and saying, put your phone away, everyone kind of, and she said, do you always have to be working? And I, jokingly, but not so jokingly said, if there's a United Airlines plane in the sky, we're always working. And guess what? There's always a United Airlines plane in the sky. So you're right. It starts with a great team. And I think the number of people on a great team, that's something we've worked really hard over the last several years to say, this is the size of the team that we need to look after, the vast social media function. And we need people that are in those promote roles that are promoting the brand on social. And their job is to go to different corners of the internet that we might not be so obvious in and open up conversations and to plant the United Airlines brand flag. We also need people protecting the brand and closing down conversations. If someone tweets at us that their bag is missing or they're in jeopardy of missing a connection that they might have, how can we problem solve quickly, shut that conversation down, move on? And so I think over the years, we've realized those are different roles. I think a lot of social media teams try to have everyone be a jack of all trades and do everything. So we've gotten much more specific. We no longer have, a pool of social media generalists. That is a team that has a very specific role down to each individual person. And again, that coordination between those two sides to say, here's what we're seeing, both positive, and here are the things that, might be a challenge, but it truly is a 24/7 operation.
So what is the magic number as far as team size?
Yeah, so I would say mid-30s is what we have to be able to do that, around 35, 36 people. We always take more because I think there's no shortage of what we can use those individuals for. But that's a number that has, worked for us. And then attaching them to those other departments, like I mentioned earlier, having someone physically sit in our operations center and be able to hear directly from the person that is running the airline at any given moment in time. There's no delay. It's not like, oh, we have to wait for a report to come out of a meeting or so-and-so heard something and they funnel it down to the team. We're hearing it in real time, and that's been incredibly helpful. Our motto is see something, say something. And so truly, all day, every day, we have a Microsoft Teams channel that's running. It's just see something, say something. It might turn out to be nothing. And oftentimes it's not even related to our brand. It could just be, hey, I'm seeing headlines pop about something. Let's make sure that we don't post something that inadvertently gets confused with, something, again, like I said, that doesn't relate to us at all, but it really takes a skilled crew. And that's the other thing. I mean, we all see the memes existing, in this community. And oftentimes people joke about the intern that's looking after social media. It's not, and we proudly have interns on our team, but when you tweet or you talk to United on social or United is posting something, those are skilled practitioners who have, made social media their livelihood. It's not just kind of their first stop in their career and they move on to something else. These are people that are chronically online because they love it. And that's what they wake up every single day wanting to do. And I think that's the other thing that I would share with brands, to say this isn't a job where, oh, we'll give it to the young person because they have a TikTok. This really takes people that have a passion and a skill set and really, frankly, the right judgment to be able to make those calls, in those moments. Should we say this? Shouldn't we say this? Could that be misconstrued? Or people going to get this? Because that's where I think a lot of brands, tend to go sideways when things go wrong.
So I'm not going to say is it the most important team, because I know you would never single out any aspect of your marketing org as being more important than the other, but is the social team kind of one of the most dominant or largest?
I would say they're one of the most celebrated. What's been the really cool thing the last couple of years at United, there's so much pride and the proactive wins they have. And I think the swagger and the evolved tone of voice and the wit that they bring. And so I feel like every single day our employees are truly cheering them on. They get really excited when they see our employees share a TikTok video or an Instagram post. And so I think that propels them through the good times and maybe the not as good times. So they definitely are a team with a positive reputation. People know who they are. They have that, kind of cool factor swag to them, which is great, because when I started at United and specifically started on the social team, and I think this happens a lot of places because everyone has social channels of their own, regardless of what you do. So everyone thinks they're a little bit of an expert. And so my team and I would constantly get examples of other brands or even other airlines, and why don't I ever see United post this? Or what if we did this? And we're really proud to say, I don't get those emails or texts or calls. I can't remember the last time someone at United said to me or someone on my team, why aren't we posting about this? Or I saw someone post. 'Cause I think we're really leading, from the front now. And that's just something that the team wants to just every single day, now live up to that high bar that they've set.
That's awesome. Meanwhile, yes, you have big anthemic brand marketing campaigns. Like, that's a whole nother part of the engine, right? And I assume you're working with external agencies for that work.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, prior to this current version of the role that I have, these were different teams. And so over the last couple of years, we have put everything together. That's the organization that I have the pleasure of looking after. And I think that has added to our success as well, because, even if you're, over here on social media and you're focused about the 20 different pieces of social content you have to get out in a week, you have to know the higher altitude that the brand is flying at and the TV commercials that are going to be out there and the out of home. And so it's been incredibly valuable to merge those two teams together. And again, use that moment during the pandemic to say, we want to reintroduce ourselves. We've done a lot in the past couple of years and really zigged while others were zagging. I think anyone would have given us a pass to say, hey, like, you guys are going through a tough time. If you just kind of take your ball and go home for a bit, so be it, that's okay. And that's not what we did. We spent more money on aircraft than, we ever have before. We made decisions to build all these new clubs and lounges at a time when, we were losing money, but we knew travel would come back. And we said, we want to be ready for it. And so let's make that investment now. Let's get serious about solving, for sustainable aviation fuel. There's a pilot shortage. Let's also come up with the right solution for that. And so the business was really giving me as a marketer the receipts to come out with a really good brand campaign. Sometimes advertising has to lead and you hope that, the brand and the product lives up to what you do in your marketing. It was almost reverse, where the business was really leading. And now there was an opportunity to say, we have to talk about this. And again, it's not about getting people from point A to point B. That might be the one thing we actually don't talk about in this first version. So that was really the genesis of Good Leads the Way, which was our first global brand campaign in a decade when that launched back in 2022.
Anything we can expect to see in 25 from a brand advertising standpoint?
Yeah, so more Good Leads the Way. We are talking about where we fly now. We have this amazing route network, and we keep adding these destinations that are just, beyond my wildest dreams. One of our most recent destinations that we announced is Ulaanbaatar, Mongolia. Say that 5 times fast. I was just like, I mentioned Marrakesh and Morocco earlier. I was just on our inaugural flight to Morocco a couple of weeks ago. Fun fact, it's a 7.5-hour flight from New York. It's the same as, going to Paris or Europe. It blows people's minds, and it's an amazing destination, an amazing long weekend destination. And so we are really talking about where we fly and taking this notion of being the biggest airline, but saying to people, here's what that really means for you. Here's how you can benefit as a customer: more nonstops, more flight times, the times that you want to go. These places that you've seen, on social media and you've maybe heard people talk about are more accessible truly than they've ever been. And oftentimes we're the only one flying there. So it's been a fun challenge because, as a team, we've said we're not going back to the old playbook of airline marketing. If you look at airline advertising, especially right before the pandemic, every single airline in this country, ourselves, American, Delta, near identical ads. We all would tell you that we fly to more than 330 destinations. We all have blue in our color palette. Every airline in this country has blue in their color palette. Up until a few years ago at United, we used the same font as Homeland Security, in the airport. And it's like, you think about the subliminal messaging and, what your eyes are seeing. And so there was a real opportunity to say, I don't know what that means. Does my mom or my friend or, did they understand what 330 that sounds like a lot, but like, do you fly to the one place I want to go to? And so we've really challenged ourselves as we've brought back more of our route network into our advertising to not fall back into the traps of, more than 330 destinations worldwide, and really being much more interesting.
You know, Maggie, you could literally, you are the professor of airline marketing. I mean, you could teach a legit class. I mean, there's just so much minutia and nuance. So
There is, when I started in this industry, and a couple of things people said, you could work here for the next 30 years and you will still learn something new every single day. And that is true. And then other people said to me, you'll either love this and truly it will feel like jet fuel is running through you, or it won't be for you. People tend to come into this category and they're here for a year, 3 years, or they're here for the rest of their life. There's kind of, no in between. It's a fascinating industry, and United has just been a great lens to see it all through.
Yeah. So you're either going to teach a class or you're going to write a book. So
right, exactly. From your lips to God's ear.
I will. Yeah, I'll be here for that. So let's just ask. I'm going to ask a couple questions that I typically ask in the Marketing Vanguard podcast, and one is just what's one action you've taken that that really sent ripple effects? And one decision, because obviously being a CMO, being a chief advertising officer, literally your job is making decisions every minute of every day they're forks in the road. They can change trajectory. So is there something your mind goes to when you think about what was a key decision, small or large?
Yeah, I think truly it's living by this notion, getting rid of the playbook. I mean, we have changed truly every aspect of everything that we do. I can think of one thing that we do the same that we did prior to the pandemic, and that's a partner of ours that prints our airport ads, like our static ads in our airports, who's an amazing partner in Houston, Texas. His name is Doug. Doug is the one, the one constant over the last couple of years. And so really, once you challenge the team to just say, well, I get that that's why we've always done it, but what if, we approached it in a new way? So that has really been the North Star that we have used. And then maybe we're inspired by being in Chicago and the Second City improv troupe being there, but that great, guidance in improv you hear about, yes, and, an improv to keep a scene going, you never want to kind of shut it down. You always want to continue to open it up. That is our team's bumper sticker. That is our mantra. That's constantly what I'm saying back to the team, like, this is great, but yes, and did you go connect the dots between, someone that's working on something a bit similar, on another team, or, someone that might not even be aware that we're doing this. So I think getting rid of the status quo and the playbook, and then just that consistent yes, and.
So in the conversation, I've literally come up with a new idea. So the Marketing Vanguard Summit's going to be back in Chicago in May next year. You were there last year for the first one. And I'm actually going to have the invited CMOs come back and literally teach a class. I'm going to give like a time limit, and you have to come with so you're going to have to teach a class on the concept of ripping up the playbook. That's it. You're going to have to do, it's going to be like 15 minutes, like a TED Talk, but it's actually going to be, because we're at the University of Chicago, you're actually going to, as if everybody in the room was a student, you're going to be a professor for 15 minutes. So
I love it. That's perfect.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you heard it here first.
Yeah.
Fun question. I played soccer growing up, so I like to use the soccer pitch as a metaphor for being a leader and trying to get a sense of your leadership style. Are you the striker trying to score the goals against the competition all the time? Are you the midfielder trying to sort of be that connective tissue between the defensive players and the strikers? Or are you the defensive player protecting the goal at all costs from competitive onslaught? Or, as my sister-in-law just corrected me the other day, are you the person who's basically literally directing the course of the game from behind, but getting no credit for it?
A little bit of everything. I hope this isn't a cop-out. I would say coach. I'm a big sports fan as well. In the last couple of years, it's funny, I have found myself more and more feeling like I'm constantly thinking about halftime speeches or pregame speeches. And so a couple of years ago, I thought, am I turning into like a middle school football coach? Are these speeches that I'm giving, even that good? But yes, I think it's been a real joy as we've, expanded the team and really have brought in, more people from elsewhere within the airline or from other companies to really play that coach role to say, this is the vision. And this is ultimately the goal and the direction we all need to row in. But, you have been brought onto this team for your unique experience and skill set. So we're not going to be overly prescriptive about how you get there, So that's been really fun. But yeah, I'm a big, I like to brand everything. I like to tell stories and think about, the lessons we want to share in stories. So I do tend to now think in, like I said, pregame and locker room speeches.
That's awesome. Last question. Who's next? Who's somebody else that we should have on the podcast? It can be somebody who is a close peer, who you know really well, who is doing extraordinary things, or it can be somebody who you've never met, but you've been admiring from afar and would love to hear from.
Okay, I'm going to go big. It's almost the end of the year, and it is the end of the Eras Tour later this week. So I'm going to say who I think is the hardest working CMO today, Miss Taylor Allison Swift. I would love really, and I don't know if we'll ever get it, but I would love that behind the scenes scoop of really the marketing and the business that she's creating. It sounds like, if you follow on social media that she's being, trailed by camera crews for hopefully some behind the scenes of the actual concert, and how that came to be. But her publicist, Tree Payne, I think, has done an exceptional job. When you really look at what they've accomplished with the Eras Tour, it's been remarkable. And I think there's so many lessons as marketers we can take. First and foremost, doing fewer things better. I oftentimes think about everything she could have done during the last couple of years, but didn't. She could have put her name on any product out there and it would have sold out. A line of makeup, a line of clothes, her own line of friendship bracelets that she sold. And, she didn't. I think she knows, when to let the fans and the community that she has created lead and where to focus, her time and effort. Though I'm hopeful one of these days, whether that's here on this podcast, that would be amazing, or in a behind the scenes movie, we hear a little bit more about the marketing aspect, but really the business gem that is Taylor Swift.
So you're speaking to a massive Swiftie. So yes,
amazing.
I admit it. I think she is everything in that. Like all props go to her. It's really extraordinary. It's unlike anything we've ever seen. So, absolutely, that will be the rest of my life's goal is to get her and or Tree Payne on the show. So
yes,
I'll work on it.
Put it on the vision board 2025.
There you go. Exactly. In the meantime, Maggie, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a pleasure as always to talk to you, and I look forward to seeing you soon.
Awesome. Thanks, Jenny. This was great.
Thank you for listening to Marketing Vanguard, part of the Adweek Podcast Network and Acast Creator Network. This podcast was produced by Jordan Pretano, executive produced by Al Manarino and John Heil, and edited by Lane McGibney at Boutwell Studios. You can listen and subscribe to all of Adweek's podcasts by visiting adweek.com/podcasts. Stay updated on all things Adweek Podcast Network by following us on Twitter at Adweek Podcasts. And if you have a question or suggestion for the show, send us an email at podcast@adweek.com. Thanks for listening.